Welcome to the Healers Café, the #1 show for medical practitioners and holistic healers to have heart-to-heart conversations about their day-to-day lives while sharing their expertise for improving your health and wellness. So welcome to the Healers Café. And today I have with me Jannine Krause. She is a naturopath and also an acupuncturist with a special interest in women over the age of 40 dealing with menopause, wanting to live the best life they can without these ageist concepts, mostly based on the fact that there's not a lot out there that is known in conventional medicine that you can actually feel great well into. I'm not even going to choose an age because it can be longer. So anyway, so I just wanted to welcome you to our conversation on health, wellness, practice, all of that.
Thanks, Manon. I appreciate it.
So I'm going to start with a question, which is, how did you, because you've been in practice 18 years, so what led you into this field? Was acupuncture then something you added? I mean, I know it's part of the curriculum, but give us a little bit your story, your process, and that if you could.
Sure. I kind of fell into the whole thing. My mom was going through cancer and I was 15 years old. And I actually wanted to be an acupuncturist first because her acupuncturist was so cool and, led me around to see what everybody was up to. And I was just so impressed by how people would walk in and they would be dragging and they'd walk out and they're floating. And I'm like, something, what are they doing in there? And at 15, you're like, there's weird voodoo, there's weird things going on. But the doc was super cool to let me understand kind of the whole process, taught me quite a few things. And I was like, I have to be an acupuncturist somehow. But I wasn't quite like sure because I was still dabbling with wanting to be a pro snowboarder. So as it is when you're 15, you kind of explore, you figure out what works for you. So my mom's naturopathic doctor took me under their wing too, and literally got me to do some research with them by the time I turned 16. And eventually I decided, yeah, there's more tools in the toolbox as a naturopathic doctor versus being a conventional doc. And I can do acupuncture and I can do the training at the same time at Bastyr. And that is what I decided to do. Just went full into
it. Yeah, okay, that certainly seems that way. Usually it is, as you say, though, somebody gets ill and, you start looking for solutions that work, and stats are important, but stats, you never know how you individually will fall in all these stats, and then what do you do as a human being? Do you just sit there and just allow chemo, or do you just take drugs, or do you just remove organs, or is there actually things you can do, right? And I think that's the pivotal time where you're doing everything to figure it out, so yeah. So what so you started your practice, anything on the level of what it takes to be a practitioner? Like, were you, some people are born as teachers and you just know by the time they're 4 they're going to be teaching.
Yeah.
And what have you learned, and have you changed in the process? Like, what's that part of practice like before we get into specialty?
Oh man, it is an evolution. It is an evolution. Going into becoming a doc, let's put it this way. I knew at an early age that I loved connecting with people. I loved speaking languages. I speak Spanish. I also grew up in a home where we had Polish speaking. I'm not fluent by any means, but I definitely can get around. And so we learned the languages, and I thought, this is a really cool way to connect with folks. And so when I went into practice, I really went into it with the knowledge of how can I connect with folks? How can I really meet them where they're at? How can I help them out? But what I didn't realize, and this is something that if I could speak to my younger self, but also speak to anyone who's looking into becoming a naturopath or in their early stages, you really have to understand how not to take on other folks' stuff and how not to blame yourself. So if you are a type of person who is very, let's put it this way, I'm a people pleaser. I've always been. And that I don't think I can take out of me. A lot of people talk about programs of, changing how you are about that. Nah, that's not going to be, that's part of me. But I had to learn how not to be an incredible people pleaser on a level of taking folks' stuff on, feeling terrible when things didn't work, and blaming myself. And that was an evolution of discovery. So I recommend to folks, when you're going into a position of caring for others, really being solid in who you are and knowing what's giving your energy away too much and what reboots your energy. Because I didn't understand that fully. And it really took me down a pretty dark pathway of near suicide, burnout, you name it, over the 18 years. So that's one of the things that's really evolved for me.
And, I mean, I don't recall it being taught in our training. There's psychology of sorts, but not really self-care, and not really understanding, our own boundaries, or, what is being a good doctor? What is that, right? And so just to put you right on the edge of your seat or whatever, there's an expression in French, but I'm not going to try and botch it in English. But what would you say? What is a good doctor now? The way you would define it now, and you can add. I mean, it's I'm asking you right off the top.
Sure. No, it's a fabulous question. And I'm going to kind of integrate a little of what people think and what we suspect, because we're at that level of customer service, right? And so we think about overgiving. We think about doing whatever we can to please the customer, and that whole concept of customers, right? And, all these things. And you dive into that deep hole and you think to yourself, wow, I have gone so far off of a giving path. And we think about Mother Teresa, right? And we go into all these things like, how much should I give? How much of my life should I give? What, and then you just go in these crazy paths. And really now what it's come to is being a neutral source. Going into a visit where you are energy neutral, you're listening to what's going on and you're understanding what they're going through, but you're not taking it on. And at the same time, you are guiding. You're not fixing. You're not authoritating. You're not taking on any of their stuff, because 9 times out of 10, and I'm sure you've seen this too, something won't go right. You'll think you did something wrong. And then later on, the patient comes back like, oh, this was going on in my life at that time. And you're like, and I blame myself for weeks about this, so it's really being energy neutral and going into it, not tied to outcomes, and really taking it as, I am a guide. I'm going to help them discover their own solutions. That's where doctor is now for me, versus overgiving and fighting to figure out every little bit of things.
Yeah, it's like it's a detective, but with a distance, right? You don't have to find it. You have to help them find it, basically, and it comes down to who does the healing.
Exactly.
And I think we were so immersed in the sort of or authoritative, if not authoritarian, style of old school medical thinking, that you are as good as God or whatever, and what you say is the truth and the only way and shouldn't be questioned. And with that, you don't allow the questioning. When I started my practice, I guess by now it's 35 years ago anyway, but it's like, what, you answer questions? It's like, wow, I've never had my questions answered. And it's like, well, I mean, you're going to deep dive down this, and you're going to find even more answers than I have, because I don't deep dive in every single field. I generally know, how to guide. And it was so shocking to people. And now we've come to kind of this other place where it's self-responsibility, self-autonomy. You as the patient is responsible. And responsible for finding the right doctor.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Absolutely.
not everyone is right for everyone. And anyway, okay, let's go to
Yes.
your field of expertise, which
Sure.
we're not allowed to say that as naturopaths, at least according to the board, we have no expertise. Anyway,
My gravitation.
your
Um,
so what have you discovered that, a lot of women have hormone issues, don't know what to do, they think their life is over. Like, what are you seeing, and what are some maybe easy things you can share to anyone who's listening that is in that boat?
yeah, one of the biggest things I've connected is circulation. And as we get older, there's lots of studies about nitric oxide and decreased nitric oxide, but really folks are like, okay, what does that really mean for me? It means circulation to the tips of your fingers and toes, and even to your most intimate parts. This is what we see is declining as we get older. Hair's falling out, intimacy doesn't feel like it used to, things down below with bladder leakage and all of that. And if we look at the common link, it's circulation. And how do we enhance circulation? And so with my patients nowadays, we're looking at breath work, because we found that good quality breath work can help to enhance nitric oxide via just breathing in and out the nose. So that's one thing I'm always talking to with folks, like, let's see how we can help you breathe through your nose. That's step one. There's definitely divisions of that. I follow
Good.
Patrick McEwen from Ireland and his work with Oxygen Advantage. So if someone wanted to dive deeper, they could look into that. And then the next side of things is I'm looking at, in addition to breathing, what about movement? And I'm not talking about everyone has to go to the gym, but I have found that there is a certain sequence of movement that can help with circulation, and in particular, getting the pelvis moving. Because for women, it is a spot that we sit all day, unfortunately, if we've got certain jobs, or we're just more sedentary than we used to be. I'm breaking out the hula hoops. I'm getting folks dancing. We're moving the hips. And so I will build in certain types of fun workouts where we're moving side to side, not just front and back, doing hula hoop. We're doing like, anything we can do to get the hips moving. And a lot of women will be like, my hips don't work well. That's okay. We can get everybody to be Shakira. You don't even have to be in public. And in your own bedroom, you can get it moving. And so pelvic floor circling, with the hips, getting things moving. One of my big tips for folks with the circulation side of things. And then, yes, there's herbs that can help us in this, but there's also foods, and looking at the plethora out there of what our plant medicine has for us. And beets are one of them. There's dark leafy greens. Yes, folks can oxalate, tell me, oh, it's too much oxalates. Mix it up. Don't eat the same thing every day. We've got celery, we have things of that nature, but there's also herbs like Angelica, Dong Quai, that has been used by the Chinese for forever, thousands of years, to help with circulation, even ginkgo.
Yep.
And looking at even ginseng and in its different varieties. And so I really will start to incorporate these types of herbs as a tonic elixir into folks' environment. And so that's kind of how I start working with things. We work on circulation and how we can enhance it. And from there it builds. And there's lots of different directions I could go, but I think I've given folks enough to chew on right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and with a bit of references too, like the Irish guy, at least that's one way you can look at. There's other, lots of breath work and lots of reasons for it. Many people are mouth breathers, right? And that affects everything. So,
Absolutely.
your whole spine, your TMJ, your way beyond. It affects, of course, the oxygenation, but also the hormones, right? Like, it's massive, and it's something so simple people can do.
Yeah. It's kind of one of my things I geek out on, and really my only other thing, I say only other of basics, is fascial therapy. And some people say fascial, I call it fascial, I don't know. But nevertheless, I do a lot of that work in the neck and jaw, because I find that this, opens up that whole neck area and circulation in the brain, which we all kind of can use as we get older. And then that vagus nerve connection there too. So It's the vagus nerve is one of my other things. I'm sure you found that too with your work, that
Oh
boy,
yeah,
if we don't pay attention to that.
yeah. So,
Ugh,
so what do you do for the vagus nerve? Like what, that you can share? A
sure.
lot of therapy is very physical, at least in my therapy where I do Bowen therapy, it's
Yes,
physical. So I'd have to kind of show you, and then nobody gets anything out of it because you can't learn it just like that. So
sure.
you have to talk around it. But so what is the vagus nerve to you? Why is it so significant, and why should people?
What would your life be like if you were pain-free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
Pay
I,
attention.
I think it's our highway from the mothership, as I would call it. I think it's a connection to our soul, and I think it's a connection to our brain. It's our longest
Yeah.
nerve. And so really I look at it as mission control. It's kind of going through everything, and it's our connection to source. And when I look at it, and maybe some folks who are listening might have heard source before in some of the spiritual realms, I think that that's our connection, the vagus nerve there. And so some of the things that I will do for vagus nerve is a lot of tapping. I'll go into emotional freedom technique tapping to do that. And so one of the things folks can see is even just tapping on the jaw, tapping behind the ear where the vagus nerve comes out, tapping right in line with the thyroid where we have the carotid bifurcation, gently tapping there, only one side, not both, guys, because we don't want anybody dropping on us. But tapping works well. You could take your toothbrush, if you've got a mechanical toothbrush, and run it here to those 3 spots, 30 to 60 seconds. That's one of my favorite tap-ins. Of course, if someone has tuning forks, I'm going to use that there too. But those are the home ways of really getting that vagus nerve to reset a little bit, secondary to breathing. Those are some of the easy ways. Flipping upside down, that's a whole nother story. So
And with the vagus nerve, how would people know they had an issue? How do you kind of let them know, have you considered?
oh my goodness, yes. So first and foremost, when someone's in a state of overwhelm and can't seem to do, nothing's working, just overwhelm keeps coming and we can't get to the mind to calm it down. Maybe we're trembling, maybe we're shaking, maybe we're having panic attacks. I am more often than not going to go to that. The other side of it is when someone's been through a whole bunch of gastric workups and they have gut issues like acid reflux, burning in the stomach, can't keep the food down, or having chronic nausea. I'm going to go, I wonder if it's your vagus nerve. Those are kind of some of the biggies. Yes, dizziness chronically, kind of more POTS, which was the postural orthostatic situation. If anyone's ever heard of that, I will also go, that is so vagus nerve. Dizziness, even blood pressure that doesn't respond to herbs or medication.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's fairly easy to say that if a person isn't thinking straight, they get overwhelmed and they feel like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. There's hope to do very simple thing, breathing, and like you said, tapping and that. So what is, we all have stories that we hold dear to heart that usually things that, I don't know, I've been surprised daily in my practice that the body is so magnificent and can do these things that, by now you would think you would expect it, but that's almost disrespectful because I feel like, I still witness it with awe going, oh my God, this is incredible, right? And anyway, as illegal as it is, we have a culture of hugging patients.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh my God, this is incredible. This has changed. And so what are some of those awe moments that are just like, that you still know deep in your heart?
Oh man, that's funny you mentioned the huggable moments. I mean, yes, I hug patients all the time, and usually, yes, it's usually after some moments. Most of the times when I've had some pretty like, oh my gosh, that was amazing moments is after acupuncture or any of the body work that I've done. And in particular, probably the strongest one that always sits in my mind is I had a gal probably about 5 years ago come into my office, and she had these spasms that would turn her neck much like torticollis. But the doc was like, you don't really fit that profile. And the way it started, it just came out of nowhere. According to the doc, she had like a huge divorce she went through and stress. And so what I found was like the neck was just turned enough, and she would have these spasms where it kind of had a tick with it. And we did some myofascial release, we did some acupuncture, we did tuning forks, and halfway through she goes, wait, stop. And I'm going, oh gosh, what did I do? Right. Because my mindset in that time was like, oh no, I did something wrong. She's like, it just let go. It's gone. It like left me. And she got up and was like, I'm fine. And in those moments, you're like, holy cow. And so she's jumping up and down and giving me hugs. Those are the best things. And I've seen them most significantly in acupuncture or bodywork sessions that I've done. And that's probably the most memorable one. Second to people getting off the table and being like, I have no pain. I have no pain, moving all around. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah. That's, and how many people would you say are as shocked of their body's ability to heal, like percentage?
100%. Probably, with acupuncture for sure. Cause I think, probably the statement that the woman that with the neck said was, oh my gosh, this stuff actually works, and there might've been a couple expletives in there of, holy, this actually works kind of stuff. So honestly, I'd probably say really, maybe not 100%, but I'd say probably 95%. It's rare that people come in and they're like, I know this is going to work for me. And as you know, as well as I do, we're oftentimes the last resort when they've tried everything else.
Yeah. No, I have one, it just made me think of it. One fellow who's very much into this sort of client base, the client is right, this, that, whatever. It served him though, so again, if you have a mindset that works for you, let it be, right? And as a practitioner, you got to learn that. So he was, it was still at the time of checks, so he threw his check down with the signature. Here's the payment, and I told him it's going to take 2 or 3 visits. And so there was no discussion the first time. Second time he came back, same old kind of story. And then I had to find out, to tweak my treatment, whether things had improved or not. And his comment was, I'm paying for it. It's gonna go away. And like, that's your job, you're doing this. And so it's really quite different than what I conceive to be how it works,
Yes.
But it worked for him. And so by the 3rd treatment, he was totally pain-free. And then, started sending a whole bunch of people, and so it's kind of funny how, how you see it also impacts, even if it's, not the same. Like you, as a practitioner, at least I had to learn, okay, it's not about being right, whatever you do. It's really about being aligned enough that you can be flexible for the benefit of the patient, as long as it's not harming them, right? But yeah, what other kind of lessons have you kind of like, learned as a practitioner?
Oh gosh, we could be on this for a long time, but one of the big ones is not rushing a protocol and jumping too fast to conclusions when things aren't working, because I've unfortunately kind of, and it's hard, right? I grew up in the very doctor is the authoritative, doctor knows best kind of process. And when things aren't working, we want the pill, we want the thing that works very fast. When things aren't working fast, but you're seeing subtle changes, and you change the protocol and things go backwards. Killer. And so patience, really having patience and trusting processes has been one of my biggest learning lessons as a whole. And really being able to convey that to patients and go, look, yes, it's natural medicine. Yes, it may be slower, it may be faster. And it all depends on, where we're at in the trajectory of things right now. So trusting the process.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. What about money? The issue with money? Anything you would like to talk about there?
Oh my goodness. As anyone who is in the healing space, let's put it that way, and is a healer, it's very hard for many of us to take money. Even myself to this day. So my patients are like, you didn't send me the link to pay you. And people will have to tell me that sometimes, because I get so involved in how I'm going to guide them that I forget about the fact that I do have to make a living doing this. And there's also that concept in the back of my head, if I don't get them results, I shouldn't be paid. That's also another thing that I've had to work with over the years, and understand that no, I'm there for my time and my guidance and wisdom to help them through. And so yes, money is a big hang up. And I think even in our industries, because we're given, like, depending on what school someone went to. I mean, we were given Tony Robbins tapes at Bastyr, and we're like, this is your business course. See you later. Have fun. And great, you're hyped up and ready to go, but like business wise, you're clueless. You don't know what to do. And so unfortunately, you default on what you've seen from your parents. You default on patterns with money that your family has instilled upon you. And this is definitely something that if you're just getting started, you want to get right with your mind on money and really understand how the exchange of energy works with money. For sure.
Yeah. Well, I found in running, Bowen College, I had to actually create an entire section on dealing with money, because it's so taboo. And it's like, it's people, many of the things you've raised, like not, if you don't succeed, you shouldn't get paid. It's like it's a punitive reward-ish system, which it isn't, like a lawyer gets paid. It doesn't matter what happens, and many other professions, whether it's a plumber. I mean, sure, they'll spend longer to figure it out or whatever, but it's not like they don't get paid for the work that they do, that honors the learning they've had, right? And I think we're very unique in that way of thinking that it's a dispensable thing in this society. But I wonder if it comes to, if it's more deeply fundamental that we think that health should be free, that in fact, if the focus in our society was actually on health, we'd be not too employed, right? I mean, which would be the right way to go, right? Like I know of Chinese systems, you pay when you're healthy, and you get looked after when you're sick.
Yeah.
So maybe fundamentally we have it wrong, but if you're in the system, you've got to get paid. I mean, there's no, otherwise you're doing something else. Like I have naturopaths that are, and nothing against waitressing, but that are doing, bar jobs so they can practice because they don't want to charge too much, and it's like, it's really messed up, So.
It really is. And honestly, like I see that, and especially with this industry, and it pains me It pains me. And I'm not going to say that I have been immune to that either, because starting out, I probably would have made more money as a bartender, waitress, whatever it may have been. Moving forward, definitely, now it's a different story, but it's hard because you're taking on all of this responsibility for guiding folks and helping them. And yeah, when you're not getting paid, you do start to get really frustrated, and then you're burning the candle on both ends, trying to make both worlds work. And I think that's for a lot of naturopaths, that's a problem. And yes, it's a huge problem in this industry, is not taking money as a healer. And I get it. And I would love to see the system be free, in terms of, like you're saying, wouldn't that be amazing to have that?
We never know. I mean, certainly the system that exists is collapsing. So maybe that can be, people who are dedicated to healing, will receive plenty funds. I can imagine a system where they're comfortable, they can pay their bills, they're not struggling, and they can do their work at ease and help people. I think we could have a world like that. This is the time to think it, right?
Absolutely.
So why not put it out there?
Love it. Love it.
Okay, last words to you, and because our time is up.
My goodness. Yeah, I really, for naturopaths out there and anybody who's looking into the healing space, really focusing on getting to know yourself and where you push your boundaries, or where those boundaries might be a little shaky, let's put it that way, and understanding your relationship with money, understanding your relationship with yourself. The better you can dial all that in, the better you're going to do in terms of taking care of you and not crashing and burning, unfortunately, and being able to take in money and be able to survive in this industry, for sure, hands down.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on, as I post a new podcast every Wednesday with tons of useful information and tips for natural healing that you won't want to miss.